What's good? I thought I'd make this video a bit earlier than expected since I got done making a few videos on gear related topics. And since crystals are a big part of it all, it would probably make sense to make it now so you guys pretty much have a completed gear guide overall. This one's just going to cover what you'll run in pure evasion build, pure DR build, and the DR build if you're in Node Wars, Siege, or anything in the PvP related topics. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. First, we have the full evasion build with your heaves, muskins, levers, and even kudum. If you were to go full evasion, you'll always of course use the best in slots for your main hand, offhand, and gloves. These are always going to be the standard in any build no matter what. Now because you are evasion, you'll have one crystal setup to go since you'll want to optimize your stats as much as possible. You'll be using crystals in your shoes and chest for the 4-set effect, and the harfias in your helmet for the most evasion boost you can get. With this setup, this is going to be the most optimal and only crystal build when you have full evasion. This is unfortunately non-negotiable, and there's no other crystal setup you can do with this. You either do this crystal setup or you don't run evasion, basically. And of course, because fiery awakening weapons do exist, we now have the option to have 2 more slots. So in this case, if you were to have those 2 added slots, you would actually move your hooms from your chest and into your fiery dandy. And since you would have open space for your chest, the best crystals to put here would be none other than your special evasion crystals. And with this, you would have completed your full power crystal setup for your evasion build. Now, if you didn't care for these special evasion crystals, you could keep the hooms in there and just put in the new crystals for your awakening that gives you either human damage or monster damage, depending on what your preference is. Of course, you'll get 2 of one. I only put one of each here to showcase both crystals you can get. And that pretty much sums up the full crystal build for evasion. Now let's go on to DR crystal build setup. Now, unlike evasion build, DR actually gives you more options to build different crystal setups since you don't have to compensate or focus anything like evasion. So with that being said, you can actually go the same build as evasion on your DR. Only difference is you'll instead have your hooms on your helmet and shoes. Since your DR, it wouldn't make any sense to go evasion crystals for your helmet. And with the armor slots open, you can do, once again, your special evasion crystals, and that would be your hooms build for your DR gear. Now if you had slots for your dandy, outside of using those monster damage or human damage crystals, you can once again move your hooms from your shoes and into your dandy. Now, allowing you open space for your shoes, you can do Hishya crystals for a solid stamina gain if you wanted, or you can do adamantines. Now let's talk about this one and why a lot of Sorcs hate this or don't think it's smart to have it on. They typically hate it because of 2 reasons. One, because they believe that Sorcs would have much better crystals in that slot instead, and 2, the general meme of just iframe forehead and don't get caught is why they don't believe in getting CC resistances, assuming you shouldn't get caught in the first place. Unless of course I'm a dumbass and there's another different reason why they don't like it. Admittedly though, yes, the strategy of Sorc is to dance around and kill as many targets as possible, which is why I do like the stamina build more, since stamina means more movement to not get caught, etc, etc. But to be fair, in Adamanti's defense, I think everyone knows it's starting to become standard or meta with a lot of classes that are now putting Sorc on the back pedal, having the ability to resist RCCs to the point that a lot of Sorcs have been struggling and asking around how to combo and how to effectively fight the CC resist meta. Now, yes, even though that's mainly for other classes, one might argue that doesn't mean you as a Sorc have to use them. Now let's think about the PvP scenarios for a second. As a Sorc, you'll more or less get caught eventually and even face possible danger in your unsafe abilities or movement, where those adamantines just might help you out and not to get caught after all. It's just percentage increase, but it's the increase that could make a difference in those few instances. Honestly, my best advice is to try it out yourself and make a better judgment off of that. If you feel the difference and think it's helping you out, then keep the adamantines, and if not, you can always go Hishias for more stamina. Either way, let me know in the comments below if you guys are actually against or for the adamanties for Sorc. Next build is going to be the stamina build, basically the signature crystal setup I use myself. Here you'll be using the Hishias for your shoes and Maclods for your chest and helmet. This here is pretty much for the full stamina for the maximum amount of iframes possible. This build really only supports succession in my opinion, since awakening has really good movement and stamina management. Succession movement's a lot harder and only has 1 iframe to use that oftentimes does take up a lot of your stamina. Then of course, if you were to grab your fiery dandy with 2 slots, you can basically move the Maclods from your chest to then put special evasion crystals in your chest instead. This way you keep your stamina build while having those nice special evasions for the benefits. And of course, if you want the human or monster damage instead in your dandy, you can always do that as well. Then last build is going to be the PvP build, mainly for any type of PvPers or people who mostly do any kind of Node Wars or Siege. We have the RBF human damage crystals in your helmet and shoes, and the special evasion in your chest. This is going to be the best RBF build that's soon to be the standard setup for all PvPers. And if you were to get that fiery dandy, once again, you can then go full human damage crystals in your dandy to complete your setup. This build optimizes the most human damage possible and has great results from lots of people who had the setup. And for the most part, that pretty much just sums up the 3 main crystal builds you can do on both sorts. It's obviously the only crystal setup for evasion. Then for DR, you can either do Hum setup, stamina setup, or the human damage setup. Those are the only 3 optimal crystal setups at the moment. So yeah, that wraps up these different crystal builds you can do. Let me know if you guys have any questions in the comments below. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.